We're live right now in NFL Draft Town. It's a beautiful little setup that they put up. I want to take you around the skyline here as we have ample opportunity to show you what's happening since we're on top of a Ferris wheel. Right there on the left is Lake Michigan. As you pan to the right, you see Selection Square, where a bunch of fans are going to gather to watch the first round of the NFL Draft tonight. Out there in the distance, you see the world-famous Shedd Aquarium. Great place to go check out a little marine life. And then there's the Natural History Museum. Behind that, Soldier Field, where the Chicago Bears play football. Got a good look at the city's skyline as we work our way down the Ferris wheel. Behind me is Michigan Avenue, where Roosevelt University is set up. That's where the draft is going to happen here tonight. And as we come on down, you see an NFL museum. They have a copy of every Super Bowl ring ever inside that building. If we get a chance, we'll show you a little later as the Ferris wheel lets us off, as me and our sports photographer, Bob Hansen, both a little sick to our stomach at this point. Looks like we're going out one more time, guys. That's just the way the draft works. You have to expect the unexpected.
It just keeps going and going, doesn't it?
Take a couple more spins. All right, we'll check back with you soon later in the show. Thanks so much. Paul Ryan live for us in Chicago.
It's all happening in Chicago, where Paul Ryan joins us live. He finally let the kids ride the Ferris wheel, but it looks like he got drafted by the Bucs. Hey, Paul.
Yeah, we're off the Ferris wheel now, Dan. Bob and I, our stomachs are a little more settled. We're still in Draft Town, though. As you can tell, I've been working out quite a bit since we got to Chicago, hoping the Bucs maybe tap me with that number 9 pick. If you take a look live right here in Draft Town, there's no shortage of things to do. Fans lining up from all 32 fan bases to pose in these little headless mannequins. They're a little cumbersome to get in and out of, though. Everyone here wondering who their team is going to select in the first round of the draft tonight, starting at 8 o'clock. Lots of speculation regarding that Bucs pick. A lot of the experts have Vernon Hargreaves, the corner out of Florida, Shaq Lawson, Leonard Floyd, among the guys mentioned. NFL analyst Mike Mayock actually has Floyd, the Georgia linebacker, going to the Bucs at number 9. I had a chance to sit down with him and ask him what he thinks the Bucs should do with that selection.
Obviously, they've drafted for offense the last couple years heavily, with Quan Alexander being the one exception, I believe. So I think it's got to be a defensive-oriented draft. I think if you're sitting there at 9, you don't move anywhere. I think it's whoever the highest-rated edge rusher versus their highest-rated corner at that particular time. If Vernon Hargreaves gets there at 9, he's logical, versus a Shaq Lawson, versus a Leonard Floyd. I think they're the logical names you'd be talking about.
I think the problem is if 2 of those guys are there, because there are some knocks on Hargreaves. Granted, he's a hometown kid, went to Wharton and all that, but I think if a guy like Shaq Lawson's there, do you prioritize one position over the other?
I think you look at your current roster, you look at what contracts are coming up, you got to think 2 years in advance, and you also look at, okay, you've got 9 in the first round, second round, what are you going to do, right, at that point? What's the best combination?
Certainly going to be a busy night inside Roosevelt University for the first round of the draft. It's the first draft for Dirk Koetter as head coach of the Buccaneers. I'm sure he's got a lot of stuff going through his mind. The other day at One Buck, he said that he went through 100 pieces of tape for defensive players for the first time in his career. I had a chance to talk to another NFL head coach, Steve Mariucci, who coached the Lions and 49ers, about what Dirk Koetter can expect his first time in the draft war room.
I mean, it's not like this is the first time he's watched defense. I mean, he does that to game plan every week of his life, right? So, and by the way, he did a great job with that offense with a rookie quarterback last year with Jameis Winston. So he's going to have an opinion. Obviously, the defensive coordinator with the style of play will have an opinion. It's like the discussion's going to be, all right, do we like this corner? Well, this corner is a bump and run man-to-man corner, or do we play a lot of cover 2? There's a different need there. But Dirk Koetter he's a hard worker. He's a very intelligent offensive guy, and with that said, he's been looking at defensive players and attacking their weaknesses his entire career, so he'll have something to say about it, even though he doesn't have the last word.
Keep it right here on News Channel 8 coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. I'm headed over there, Combine Corner. If you're lucky, you might get to see me do a vertical jump, Dan.
Seeing your vertical, Paul, and I hope it improves. Otherwise, you're not getting drafted. All right, we'll check back with you in a little bit.
Round 1 is just hours away. That man right there.
Paul Ryan joins us now from the red carpet, sir.
Hey there, guys. We're still hanging out in NFL Draft Town right now, where all the football fans are gathering before the first round of the NFL Draft tonight. We're standing here in Combine Corner, where everyone can try some of the things that the NFL athletes do at the Combine. They got vertical jumps set up. I didn't see a bench press anywhere, but one thing I did see was a chance to kick a field goal here. And I think we're going to give a shot here on live television, if that's all right with you guys.
What do you think about...
I will say, full disclosure, I've torn the crotch out of these dress pants before. They're not built for athletic activity, but we're going to give it a whirl, all right? Here we go. Ready?
Oh, the kick! That was all right.
I don't think I'm going to get drafted tonight, guys. I just don't think it's in the cards. I think the Bucs could use anybody but me. At least I didn't get booed too heartily.
Oh, we give the kids. Oh, we give the kids.
But more importantly, how are the pants?
One more?
Wow.
Come on, one more. Pants are still in one piece.
Why? This is why you stopped at the first one, Paul.
Joke artist.
Choke. Although I can't
Always
talk.
stop at the first one.
Yeah.
Good evening. We're standing just outside the Roosevelt University draft room. Just a little further down Michigan Avenue is the NFL Draft Town, where we spent the better part of the afternoon palling around. But right now it's time to get down to brass tacks. It's the draft less than 2 hours away. If you look down here, you can see the red carpets, the athletes being escorted by special people in their lives one at a time, walking down the red carpet, getting ready to head to the draft room where their NFL futures will be decided. Keanu Neal, the last guy to come through, a safety out of the University of Florida. Vernon Hargreaves, the other defensive back from Florida, who we anticipate maybe the Bucs selection at number 9, has yet to come down the red carpet, but we're going to keep an eye out for him, and we'll be here live for the rest of the evening here on News Channel 8. Back to you.
Paul Ryan has been having fun all evening long. I see the red carpet there behind you, sir, and it's looking good and cold, a little chilly.
This is one of the first times in my life I honestly feel a little underdressed. There's no who's you're wearing for me. It's like J.C. Penney. That doesn't count for anything. We're standing just outside of the red carpet here. All the prospective picks from today. 25 guys expected to go in the first round, maybe early second for some of the unfortunate ones. Walking down the red carpet, Wharton graduate and Florida defensive back Vernon Hargreaves III, who could be a guy the Bucs are eyeing at number 9, just walked off the red carpet. Right now they're pulling it out for Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, the two quarterbacks expected to go number 1 and number 2 overall to the Rams and the Eagles, respectively. We're going to head inside Roosevelt University in just a minute and get ready to start the NFL draft, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, or 8 o'clock Eastern rather, but 7 o'clock here. Time zones are a funny thing, Jen. Good evening from Chicago, standing outside of Roosevelt University where the first round of the NFL draft is just about to begin. Fans lining up, waiting to check out some of the action tonight and wondering who will their favorite NFL team select in the first round of the draft. And as luck would have it, there's a man in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers sweatshirt standing outside. Sir, what's your name?
Name's Nick.
Nick, what brought you out to Chicago?
I live in Chicago, actually.
But you're still a Bucs fan.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you want to see him take at number 9?
I like Ramsey, but probably not going to happen.
Ramsey's not going to be there, man. Haven't you read a mock draft?
I have read a mock draft.
All right, well,
They
I
can trade up.
hope they get Ramsey for your sake. Vernon Hargreaves III, a Wharton product who played defensive back at the University of Florida, one of the 25 invitees to the first round of the draft tonight, signing autographs for fans. All the Buccaneers fans wondering if maybe the Bucs will take him with that number 9 pick. We'll find out. We'll have continuing coverage right here in Chicago on News Channel 8 tonight at 11. Hey there, guys. Good evening. The Buccaneers got the guy they wanted, and they got him for a discount. In typical Pirate fashion, they end up plundering a pick from the Chicago Bears, getting an extra 4th rounder by sliding from that number 9 spot down to number 11, where they selected Vernon Hargreaves III, a hometown kid, went to Wharton High School, went to the University of Florida, wore cleats there that said the city of Tampa on them. At least the bright side is the kid's not going to have to get a new driver's license. He's only been a Buccaneer for a little over an hour, but already teammates are reaching out and welcoming him to the family.
And actually, I have to give a lot of credit to my agent. He told me yesterday that the Bucs could trade back to 11. He said it just like that, and so my heart actually dropped when they did trade the pick. I was like, uh-oh. I was like, oh, here we go. So I have to give a lot of credit to my agent for actually, he got it right.
When you first heard your name called, what went through your head?
Man, I don't even know. I don't even know. It just exciting. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you honestly have to go through. You have to go through it to know how I'm feeling right now. Who wouldn't want to go back to the city that they're from?
Hargreaves III, obviously ecstatic to be a Buc. He said he models his game after Brent Grimes, the corner that the Buccaneers brought in from Miami earlier this year to play one of the starting spots. Now Hargreaves is going to be competing with him for playing time. I'll have more from my interview with the newest Tampa Bay Buccaneer coming up a little later in sports. And before we talk about the draft, I got to show you something pretty cool. We're back in Draft Town today, a big part of the whole draft experience here in Chicago. If there was ever a place for an Ocean's 11-esque heist, George Clooney's going to show up and steal something, it's the Super Bowl ring exhibit. Check this out. They have a Super Bowl ring from every single Super Bowl here, including the Bucs ring in 2002. Let me show you the magnifying glass. Slide it right in front. Take a good look at that, baby. I'm told this exhibit here has $40 million worth of diamonds in it. Of course, every NFL player being drafted this weekend, it's their dream to win a Super Bowl ring, Vernon Hargreaves included. He just getting acquainted with his new Buccaneers teammates. He said he got a text from Gerald McCoy last night just after he was drafted. And I think the #1 goal once he gets to work this fall at camp is to earn one of these rings.
I'm looking forward to get to know them. Obviously, don't know much about them, but I know a few guys. You know, Brent Grimes, one of the guys that I look up to, one of the guys that you know, I want to model my game after, just because we're similar size, similar build, and you know, I'm just ready to get in there and get to work and start winning games.
The Bucs have got a really young crew of guys. Do you think you'll fit in well with that group, and why?
Of course. You know, I'm not a hard person to get along with. You know, and I think ultimately we all gonna have one goal in common, and that's to win.
Keep it right here on News Channel 8 for more live coverage here in Chicago as the NFL draft gets closer. It begins at 7 o'clock Eastern tonight. We'll let you know who the Bucs are selecting in the second round. Dan,
all right, Paul. Great work up there. We'll check back with you in a little bit.
The sun is finally out in Chicago. Let me set the scene a little bit. A few hundred yards that way, you're going swimming in Lake Michigan. And I guess if you walk a few feet this way, you're going swimming in Buckingham Fountain. Quite the scenic scene here. Right behind that is Selection Square, where fans are already starting to gather, getting ready for the second round of the draft. Set to kick off at 7 o'clock Eastern time tonight. The Buccaneers addressed their secondary issues in the first round by taking Vernon Hargreaves III. We're expecting them to address their defensive line in the second and third rounds tonight. Just looking at some of the names available, I think guys you need to watch. Miles Jack, outside linebacker from UCLA, has got some injury concerns, but if he's available when the Bucs are picking early in the second round, hard to pass him up. Same goes for Shalik Calhoun of Michigan State, Kamale Correa from Boise State, and a guy that the Bucs initially were targeting in the first round a few weeks ago, Noah Spence, a defensive end from Eastern Kentucky. One of those four guys very likely to go to Tampa Bay in the second round if they select there. If so many of those guys are still there, we may see them do what they did last night and trade back just a little bit and maybe pick up an extra pick in the draft. Those picks always so valuable, Keith and Stacy.
Yeah, very strategic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely important, Dan. Now that they've addressed defense, and we expect them to go defense again in the second, maybe even the third round, they need to start thinking about picking offense in the later rounds. I'm going to tell you why. The core of this team, the young, important cogs of this team, are all on the offensive side of the ball. Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, Ali Marpet, Donovan Smith. To add another weapon, maybe that doesn't contribute necessarily so much this year, but next year would be hugely important. I had a chance to talk to former NFL quarterback Kurt Warner earlier this week, a guy that knows a thing or two about offense in the NFL, and here's what he had to say. There hasn't been a ton of talk about supplementing him with offensive weapons in the draft, at least not in the early rounds. But as a former QB, is that something that you always want? Yeah, go ahead and take a wide receiver. Reach for him if you have to.
I mean, yeah, I mean, in the back of your mind, you know, because you always believe, well, if you give me enough weapons, I'll outscore the other team, so we don't need a defense. But at the same time, there's always something to be said that if you have a good defense that can slow down another team and you don't have to do as much, that's a nice place to be as well. So he's got some good weapons around him.
Definitely has some weapons. Another one wouldn't hurt, though, right, Dan?
I agree, but so would a defensive end tonight. That'd be fun.
Yeah, the sun's gone now. It's definitely chilly. We're only a couple hundred yards away from Lake Michigan. That lakefront breeze blowing in makes your lips a little cold. You can see behind me, we're standing here in Selection Square. Beautiful Buckingham Fountain in the city skyline behind me, just across the street over Michigan Avenue there at Roosevelt University. The second round is officially underway. The Buccaneers have the 8th pick in the second round tonight, number 39 overall. They also have a pick number 11 in the third round, and we're expecting Tampa Bay to continue to address its defense. They took Hargreaves yesterday, addressing their secondary situation. We're thinking defensive lineman or outside linebacker to help with that pass rush, especially in the second round tonight. Guys to keep an eye on if they're still available when the Bucs select include Shalik Calhoun from Michigan State, Kamale Correa from Boise State, and a guy that the Bucs were actually targeting in the first round as recently as a couple weeks ago, defensive end Noah Spence out of Eastern Kentucky. If one of those guys is available when the Bucs are ready to select, they might be the next ones in a red and pewter jersey. Yeah, right now in front row for some more glitz and glamour, Josh. For the first time in the history of the NFL draft, they're holding 2 nights of red carpet. Yesterday was the top 25 prospects in the draft, but tonight it's the men of the year. One representative from each NFL team getting to walk down the red carpet tonight, where they'll head across the street, Michigan Avenue there, and head inside Roosevelt University to place the pick for for their respective teams in the third round of the draft. Rondé Barber, Super Bowl champion and decorated Buccaneer, will be making the Bucs selection tonight. We're still waiting for him to come down the red carpet. Meanwhile, Anthony Booger McFarland, just a few minutes ago, made the second-round pick for the Buccaneers. It's a guy Tampa Bay was originally targeting in the first round as recently as a few weeks ago. Eastern Kentucky defensive end Noah Spence, maybe the best pure pass rusher available in the draft. So it looks like General Manager Jason Light has got this figured out. He got his starting cornerback, and now he's got a pass rusher. We'll see what the Bucs do in the third round, Jim and Josh.
The Bucs actually traded up to draft a kicker. Not something you see very often. Paul Ryan is live for us tonight in Chicago. Well, Paul, the Bucs had a need, and I guess this certainly fills that need.
I can tell by the tone in your voice you don't like the pick. I'm going to take the other side of this coin, though, Keith. I like the fact that they traded up to get Roberto Aguayo from Florida State. It's not just a kicker. He's the kicker, the most accurate kicker in the history of college football. Let that sink in for a second. Plus, the Bucs didn't give up much to go and get him either. They just swapped the fourth-round pick that they got from the Bears yesterday. They only traded down 2 spots to get Hargraves. They got that fourth-round pick for free. You might as well move up and get a position of need. Now, taking that kicker was not good news for everybody. Case in point, Rondé Barber, the former Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion, esteemed Buccaneer in Chicago this weekend to announce the Buccaneers' third-round pick in the NFL draft. Well, because they got rid of that third-round pick to trade up to take Aguayo, Barber didn't get to announce any picks. Although he was still in town and had a great time, I'm sure. I had a chance to pull him aside on the red carpet and talk about how a vet longs for a simpler time.
This is pretty cool. Since they've made this a primetime event now, you get an opportunity to get in front of the fans again. My draft, I don't know, odyssey back then was sitting at a bar in Charlottesville waiting for my name to get called. But it's definitely changed, and this is a very cool experience, catching up with all the old guys. It's fun.
Barber was obviously a defensive back when he played for Tampa Bay, and I asked him, as a defensive guy, do you want to call a defensive player when you get up there to pick the pick? And he says, that's what I think I'm going to do. I think they're going to go defense again. Surprise, Rondé. They took a kicker on you. But it is a position of need. 3 for 3 for Jason Light so far, guys.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm not knocking the pick. It is just an unusual way to go.
I'm going to let you go ahead and make some sense out of what happened after that pick, Paul.
Come on, Dan. You don't like the pick? I love the pick. Listen, entering this draft, we knew what the Bucs' positions of need were, right? They needed to address the secondary. They needed to address the pass rush. And any Bucs fan that can think back to last year can recall at least 2, maybe 3 games that Tampa Bay lost because of kicking woes. They didn't trade up to get a kicker. They traded up to get the kicker. Roberto Aguayo is the most accurate kicker in the history of college football. The highest selected kicker since Nugent was taken by the Jets back in 2005. Generally, kickers that are taken this high have long and healthy careers. Jankowski, Hansen, Nugent. This is a good pick by the Bucs. And the guys whose jobs are on the line at this draft, Jason Light and Dirk Cutter, both seem pretty happy with their selections tonight.
You have to spend time. You have to do your research. You have to go back into his life, and you have to sit down with him, obviously, and talk with him. But if you feel comfortable, you can't sentence a guy for life for some mistakes that he's made in the past.
The best best kicker in college football history doesn't come around very often. So it's a unique situation, to say the least. We know it's going to be criticized in some fronts, but it's going to play itself out over time.
And worst case scenario for the Buccaneers, if that pick doesn't pan out, they didn't give up much to go and get him. Just moved that 4th-round pick they got from the Bears yesterday when they traded back, and were still able to get the guy they wanted in Vernon Hargraves. So far, Dan, a pretty solid-looking draft by the Buccaneers. Well, Hargraves is happy right now because he gets to go to Tampa where it's 88 degrees and sunny, and we're stuck here in the windy and rainy city where it's coming down sideways behind me here in the square at the NFL draft. They just wrapped up the last pick, the interminable 6th and 7th round just a few minutes ago. Dan, the draft was in New York since 1964. This is the 2nd year they've done it here in Chicago, and it has turned into a must-see event. Last year, 200,000 people came out for the NFL draft. It's become a family experience, and this year the numbers were huge up until today when it started raining sideways. The stuff to do here, the list is a mile long. They had a Super Bowl ring exhibit, $40 million worth of jewelry in that exhibit. The Vince Lombardi Trophy was here. They had a Ferris wheel and a combine center where you could kick a field goal, all sorts of hoopla for the NFL draft. And if it keeps going like this, it might just be here to stay.
Oh, no!
So can I ask you anything?
Yeah.
Anything at all?
Yes, sir.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Who are the Bucks going to take with the number 9 pick?
I am not sure.
Oh, come on, you said anything. You think this is too big for me?
No. I think mine fits perfectly.
I think mine fits okay, too. Real quick, what are you thinking going into this kick?
I'm thinking that I need to enhance my inner Martin Gramatica, and I need to make the best kick possible so I don't let Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg down.
Pushed it. It was wide left. Hey, Coach, who would win in a fight, Ditka or Mike Tyson?
Oh, Ditka.
Who's faster, Usain Bolt or Mike Ditka?
Ditka.
Who's better, the Bucks or the Bears?
Oh, the Bears.
The what?
The Bears.
The what?
The Bears.
Let's see what happens.
Let's go.
So why'd you pick the Buccaneers?
Because they're my cousin's favorite team.
Do you know any of the players?
Yes.
Name them.
Mike Evans.
Forget about Jameis Winston?
Yes.
Nothing but fun here at the NFL Draft in Chicago, Dan. And to talk about those draft picks briefly, I know we'll get into this a little later. The Bucs fans may be looking down this list of players that the Buccaneers selected and not seeing any guys that particularly stand out to them. This is the anti-Dallas Cowboys draft. A lot of guys that are meat and potatoes football players that are going to fill immediate needs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just looking down this list, Hargrave, Spence, Aguayo, Smith, Beninock, Bond, Vitale. I can't find a guy here that doesn't have a chance of making the opening day roster. Even the guys that don't have starting spots waiting for them are going to be able to contribute on special teams. And for a young team like Tampa Bay that needs some of these young guys to come in and contribute to take the squad to the next level, I think this was a solid draft by Jason Light and Dirk Cutter, Dan. Hey, I got to do something right. Sometimes even a blind squirrel finds a nut, Dan. Hargrave's obviously one of the top 25 prospects in this draft. He was invited out to Chicago to dress in his Thursday best and walk the red carpet out here. It's a real whirlwind for those guys. You saw just how crazy the draft process could be when Laramie Tunsil fell down the draft after that gas mask video. Fortunately, no such incident for Hargraves, although I'm sure all the media attention was a little overwhelming. After he gets his name called, he hugs the commish, and he's taken back for interviews and out here onto the plaza to meet the fans. And then just short time afterwards, he got stuck talking to me. I was the first one to talk to him after he was picked Thursday night.
With the 11th pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Vernon Hargraves III.
The newest Tampa Bay Buccaneer, Vernon Hargraves III. You like the way that sounds?
I love it. I love it. It's awesome.
When you first heard your name called, what went through your head?
Man, I don't even know. I don't even know. It just exciting. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you honestly have to go through it to know how I'm feeling right now.
That emotion, though, I mean, how do you hold that back? How do you not just break down in tears knowing this is a dream come true now?
I'm trying to hold it together right now, you know. But like I said, you have to know. You just have to be a draft pick to honestly know what it feels like.
I don't think that's going to happen for me, man. You used to wear some cleats that said City of Tampa on them. How great is it to just be back in Tampa?
I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. Who wouldn't want to go back to the city that they're from?
The Bucs had you pegged as one of their selections kind of early in the draft process. Now that it's all said and done, what was your conversations like with them leading up to today?
You know, general conversations. You know, they didn't give me too much information, and you know, we were just building a relationship the whole time. You know, met with them a lot during this process, and you know, I felt like this was a team for me.
They never told you though, hey, if you're there, we're going to take it.
No.
When they traded out at number 9, though, how did you feel there? Were you a little worried?
You know, my agent, actually I have to give a lot of credit to my agent. You know, he told me yesterday that the Bucs could trade back to 11. He said it just like that, and so my heart actually dropped when they did trade the pick. I was like, uh-oh. I was like, oh, here we go. So I have to give a lot of credit to my agent for actually, you know, he got it right.
He braced you for it.
He did a great job.
The secondary in Tampa Bay, what do you know about those guys? You've talked about Brent Grimes before as kind of a role model for your game.
I have. You know, I'm looking forward to get to know them. Obviously, don't know much about them, but I know a few guys. You know, Brent Grimes, one of the guys that I look up to, one of the guys that you know, I want to model my game after, just because we're similar size, similar build. And, you know, I'm just ready to get in there and get to work and start winning games.
The Bucs have got a really young crew of guys. Do you think you'll fit in well with that group, and why?
Of course. You know, I'm not a hard person to get along with. You know, and I think ultimately we are going to have one goal in common, and that's to win. And I think that's what would be the best.
Have any of those guys reached out to you yet? Jameis send you a text or anything like that?
Gerald McCoy sent me a text. Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So.
Is that weird? Did you have his number saved? You were like, who is this guy?
No, I didn't. He texted me, said this is Gerald McCoy. I was like, man, that's real now.
If you had a message for the city of Tampa right now watching at home, what would it be?
I'm coming home. I'm coming back.
Hargreaves is coming back, and he's going to compete for a starting spot right away. Everyone figures Brent Grimes is going to start at one of the corners. It could be Hargreaves at the other corner, maybe at nickel, depending on how things shake out with Werner and Banks. Certainly talented enough to be in that consideration at least. And you're talking about being able to afford his own house now, Dan. I was following Kenny Bell, the wide receiver on Twitter that missed last season with a hamstring injury. He built a fort in his living room the other day with the pillows and the blankets and everything. Maybe Hargreaves can come by and play fort sometime. That's a good way to bond with your teammates, right? Welcome back live to Grant Park here in Chi-Town, just off the shore of Lake Michigan. And honestly, I feel like the entire lake is being dumped on us right now. It's the second year of the NFL draft here in Chicago, and it always attracts a big crowd. Not just the top prospects in the country, but hundreds of thousands of fans, as well as a bunch of big names within the industry. I talked to a ton of analysts this week leading up to the draft. Mike Mayock of the NFL Network, Steve Mariucci, who former NFL coach, ate dinner next to Sean King yesterday, the former Buccaneers quarterback and current USF quarterbacks coach. He did not like that Roberto Aguayo pick, by the way. Another guy I had a chance to speak to, Kurt Warner, former Super Bowl winning quarterback, soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner. And he had a lot to say about the Buccaneers and what they should do in this draft and the future of the franchise, Mr. Jameis Winston. All right, looking back as a former quarterback at Jameis Winston's season last year, are you impressed?
I was impressed. I'm not saying I'm surprised, though. You know, what I saw in college was very much what I saw through the whole rookie year. Early on in the season last year, you saw him trying to do a little too much, trying to force some things, and really trying to, I think, figure out, you know, what can I get away with at this level that I got away with at the last level. And, you know, it cost him a little bit early and threw some interceptions, and you know, they struggled a little bit early. But then you saw him kind of grow into the position. You saw the leader that he was. You saw his ability to grasp an offense and continue to expand as the season went along. So very excited with where he's at after his rookie year. Very excited, you know, about the impression that he made as a young man, not just as a quarterback. You know, so I've been fortunate to get to know him a little bit over this time and just really been impressed with how he carries himself and the work that he's willing to put in. And so I believe that the future is bright for him.
What can anyone expect in that second year, though? Is there a ceiling for a sophomore in the NFL, or do you expect him to improve by leaps and bounds?
Well, I mean, there's different guys. You know, a lot of people will make their greatest strides from year one to year two. And so that's got to be exciting for all Bucs fans. You know, for, you know, the fan base and the organization in Tampa is we just want to see strides. We want to see that he can continue to grow and get better year in and year out. You know, we don't expect him to be a finished product next year. As a matter of fact, we hope he's not a finished product next year. We hope that there's more to come from him. But, you know, me as an analyst and a guy that's looking back as a quarterback is I just want to see improvements. You know, where he was, you know, from the beginning of last year to the end, loved what I saw. Now, if we can see that same type of progression from the beginning to the end of this year, now we've got something special, and you just hope that that can continue.
There hasn't been a ton of talk about supplementing him with offensive weapons in the draft, at least not in the early rounds. But as a former QB, is that something that you always want? Yeah, go ahead and take a wide receiver. Reach for him if you have to.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, in the back of your mind, you know, because you always believe, well, if you give me enough weapons, I'll outscore the other team, so we don't need a defense. And that's just our mentality and the confidence that we have. But at the same time, there's always something to be said that if you have a good defense that can slow down another team when you don't have to do as much, that's a nice place to be as well. So he's got some good weapons around him. You know, I think he was very fortunate to come in as the #1 pick with as many offenses of weapons as they had last year. Take the best players available that can help us to build for the long term, because that, you know, that's how you look at it. If you're a Jameis Winston, you go, I'm here for the long term. I'm here for the next 15 years. Let's put a team around me where year in and year out we can be competitive.
All right, real quick, I'm going to put you on the spot. what's their record this year? Where's the ceiling? Where should they expect to be?
Wow, I expect them to make some strides. I still don't know if they're in that playoff caliber team. I say maybe an 8-8 team this year. I do expect them to make some strides. And then again, if you can win a close one here or there and not give one away, maybe you can get up to that 9-win spot. But I'm going to say probably around 500 this year, but right there on the cusp of the playoffs.
As it turns out, the Buccaneers didn't do much in the draft to supplement Jameis Winston offensively. They had an offensive tackle taken in Caleb Benenoch, and only one guy that Jameis could legally give the football to, Dan Vitale, that fullback from Northwestern. But he's got plenty of weapons coming back that were already a part of the Bucs organization this year. Welcome back live to Grant Park in Chicago, where our Bucs bonus draft special continues. We're putting a nice little bow, or bow tie perhaps, on the 2016 NFL Draft. One of my favorite parts about this spectacle is the celebrity pickers. Anthony Booger McFarland got to make 2 selections in the second round for the Bucs yesterday. Dick Vitale at 1 Buck place today. And I'm forgetting about Rondé Barber. Well, not forgetting, but the guy didn't actually get to go and make his 3rd round pick because the Bucs traded that pick to come up and get Roberto Aguayo, that Florida State kicker. But Rondé Barber still got to walk the red carpet. First time in NFL history that they had 2 nights of red carpet here. And I pulled him aside, and he showed some love for News Channel 8. Rondé, you're looking even more fly than usual. In typical red carpet fashion, I got to ask, who are you wearing?
I am wearing, I don't know who I'm wearing, to be honest with you. I have a guy in Tampa, David Kahn, who makes all my stuff, and this is just one of the ones I picked up.
He's got a guy. Who has a guy?
Everybody's got a guy.
Rondé, what kind of honor is it to come up here in the NFL Draft?
This is pretty cool. Since they've made this a primetime event now, you get an opportunity to get in front of the fans again. My draft, I don't know, odyssey back then was sitting at a bar in Charlottesville waiting for my name to get called. But it's definitely changed, and this is a very cool experience, catching up with all the old guys. It's fun.
Has it changed for the better or the worse? Because it is such a spectacle.
Better, worse, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. People pay to watch it. The NFL, loves the product, I guess. So, I mean, I think I enjoyed it when it was more of a, this is where you're going, not so much of a big deal, but it is what it is, man. People tune in for a lot of live programming. Not a lot of live programming, but this is one of them.
Did you see the plan that Jason Light's got going here? What do you feel about the Hargraves pick and the Spence pick and the plan he's sort of putting together?
Yeah, I think there were some guys that they really wanted in this draft. And as circumstances worked out, had an opportunity to trade back, add some value to this draft to get a draft pick, and they did that. If there were some guys that would have slid, I think it may have been a little bit different. I mean, I know they were interested in a couple of those offensive tackles. I'm not sure if that changed their decision or not, but Jason had a plan, the staff had a plan. The few times that I've been over there in the offseason, I would say that they're building this team on the other side of the ball now.
All right, last question for you. As an old hand, a guy that's been there and won a Super Bowl and we're part of the Bucs in their heyday, what sort of role do you play to these young guys? A Vernon Hargraves when he shows up in a town. You talk to him? You mentor him at all?
Hey, I'm available to talk to any of these guys. And yes, in my role since I've retired, I'm in the building a lot, whether it's in my role as an analyst or as my role just as an ex-player that these guys can relate to. They have questions, I can give them. If they want to know how I played 16 years, I can tell them. They probably won't believe me, but it's really an honor to be still kind of associated with the team that brought me in here.
Rondé Barber on the red carpet. Hey, get me in touch with your guy, would you? I asked Rondé, as a defensive guy, if he wanted to go up there and call the name of a defensive player, and he told me that's what he expects to do. He thought the Bucs were going to go defense in the 3rd round. I think that Aguayo pick surprised everybody, including the unflappable Mr. Barber.